Hello, sixth grade. My name is Mr. Buckwater, and I am the Raptor science teacher for those of you who don't know me or don't have me. And I'm excited to be with you today. Now, today we are going to continue on with the one word that should be engraved in your head from this week, and that is speed. Now, the good news is I am not going to introduce anything new today. Now, today is just a review of what concepts have we learned from earlier this week. Now, Mr. Francina started off this week, day 1 and day 2, talking about speed and a couple of other things, and then Mrs. Ward picked up with that on day 3. Now, today, like I said, all we're going to be doing is reviewing some key concepts about speed and making sure we're all on the same page. Now, I came up with a short little slideshow here to go over some of the key things that we learned this week. Now, the first thing that we learned on Monday with Mr. Francina was what is speed? Like, what is the actual definition? And what does it look like? And how can we find it? And all these different things. Now, he made a 15-minute long YouTube video. That was just fantastic. He made 2 of them, actually. One for day 1 and one for day 2. I'm choosing 2 main points from that 15-minute video. If you are a little fuzzy on what speed is, and maybe you forget what we did Monday, stop what you're doing right now, go back to his folder from day 1, and watch this video again. That is the best review that you can do. But if you're pretty familiar, here's the 2 things that we can pull from that video. Number 1, speed, which we can represent with the variable v, is the distance traveled by an object in a unit of time. The second thing we determined was that in order to determine speed or to find your speed, you need to know 2 things: the elapsed time and the distance traveled. If you know those 2 things, you can find the speed of anything, anyone, any object. Doesn't matter. That's what we learned from day 1. Now, in day 2 and day 1 a little bit, Mr. Francina got into how do we calculate speed? And maybe right now with calculating speed, your mind feels like the background of this picture. Just you're all over the place and everything looks so confusing. And that's okay. We're going to talk a little bit more about that and understanding where you're at. But hopefully you're starting to get the hang of it if you've been doing the practice and watching the videos throughout the week. Just to recap, we need to understand some of the key vocabulary before we move into the equations and that kind of stuff. So just to recap, speed is represented with v, and it's the distance traveled by an object in a unit of time. We cannot stress variables enough. When you see v, you need to start getting used to, okay, that's speed. It should be one and the same. It's like me calling someone Nicholas and then calling him Nick. It's the same thing, right? Just we represent it in different ways. Now, the second thing is delta. Delta is simply a triangle, and we learned this in chemistry as well, but delta simply stands for change. We rarely see delta by itself. It's always attached to another variable. Therefore, in number 3, when it says delta x or delta d, that means change in position. Position can be represented with x or d. It's position, distance, kind of the same thing. And then finally, we learned that delta t is the change in time. So when you started and when you stopped recording time. Okay? So those are our 4 key vocab words from earlier this week. Now, moving along, Mr. Francina gave us this little equation to start. This is the speed equation. We have delta x up top here, and then we have delta t underneath. So if you want to find speed, all you need to do is take your change of position, how far did you go, divided by the change in time, how long were you timing, and that will give you your speed. Now, that might look a little wonky, might look a little confusing to you. So Mr. Francina then introduced you to our little friend, the triangle. Now, I love this triangle. I think it makes things a world easier than it does just looking at all these equations on a list. So the triangle trick we can use to quickly find the missing variable, speed, distance, or time. Because you started off with questions that all were regarding speed. But what if I give you the speed and the time and you have to tell me how far that thing went? Or you need to figure out the time. This will help us do that. And Mr. Franchina did a great job in his second video from day 2 at explaining that. Now, from this triangle, Mr. Franchina said that we could find 3 equations. 3 equations, just from this one triangle. Now, he gave a great strategy for that, and I'll talk about that later. But all 3 of these equations might seem a little confusing, but the key here is that each one is solving for something different. This one's solving for speed, this one's solving for time, and this one's solving for distance. Now, again, he had a 15-minute long YouTube video explaining the triangle and how it works. So we'll go back to that if you need a real deep review. But if you're pretty familiar with what he did, these were the 5 steps that I pulled from Mrs. Ward and Mr. Franchina working on the problems throughout the week. Now, the first thing you need to do when you have a speed problem is to read it. You need to read the problem and read it thoroughly. The second thing you need to do is determine what the problem wants you to find. Does the problem want you to find the speed, the distance, or the time? Again, you have to read critically. When you find what they're asking you to solve for, that is where you can use the triangle. Mr. Franchina recommends when you find what they want you to solve, cover with your thumb that part of the triangle. So if it's distance, cover this. If it's time, cover this. If it's speed, cover this. That will tell you and show you what your equation is. If I cover up v, then I'm left with change in distance over change in time. See, right here. If I cover up change in time, then I'm left with change in distance over speed. And then finally, if I cover up my change in distance, then I'm left with speed times my change in time. So it's just a real quick trick to help you get the right equation. Once you have the right equation, you have to go back to the problem, step 4, and find the other components. A huge recommendation of all 3 teachers is the color code. Notice we write everything in red that pertains to distance, everything in blue that pertains to time, and everything in orange that pertains to speed. Highlight up, annotate up the word problem with all 3 of these colors, and then transfer them and plug, as I say to my class, plug and chug. Plug the numbers in and chug out your answer. That's step 5. And the last thing is to make sure you label it correctly. Don't just put 5. 5 what? 5 hippos, 5 watermelons. No, tell us what it is. If it's time, is it 5 hours? Is it 5 minutes? Read the problem. If it's speed, it has to be a rate. We'll talk more about that in the future. And if it's distance, is it miles? Is it feet? Is it inches? What are you talking about? Now, that was just a real quick review of how to use the triangle, how to calculate all that different stuff. This is where I want to ask you, where are you at right now? Where are you at? Are you a code green, a code yellow, or a code red? So if you would say you're code green, that means that you totally get what we are talking about regarding speed and can teach it to somebody else. That's how you know you really know someone. That's code green. Code yellow is sometimes I get stuck on problems. I'm still figuring this whole speed thing out, but I feel like I understand the concepts fairly well. That's a code yellow. And code red is I'm really struggling. I'm like that guy at the computer there. I just have had it. I don't know anything about speed. I get stuck and I don't know where to start. The thing is, guys, it's okay wherever you're at. You're learning from home. That's new. We're teaching from our homes. That's new. We're learning this together. So wherever you're at is okay. Our goal is for everybody to be in code green. That's why we're going to practice. That's why we want you to go back over the things, and also why we want you to reach out to us. So our last slide here for today is our emails. So if you've been confused throughout the week, please reach out to us. We can't walk by your desk anymore. School is out, school's closed. You have to reach out to us if you are confused. And it's okay if you're confused. That's all right. We want to communicate with you. Email us during our office hours or not during our office hours, and we're going to respond to you as quick as we can. So there's my email, Mr. Franchina's, Mrs. Ward's, and you can choose whatever teacher you have. So communicate with us. We want to help you. We can do that in a variety of ways. So reach out if you're confused, if you're code yellow, code red, and make sure that we're staying in contact. The last thing I want to talk about is help each other, right? No, you can't go over to each other's houses, practice social distancing, but you can Zoom one another. You can FaceTime one another, Skype, however you want to get in contact, phone call, letter, carrier pigeon. I don't know. That probably won't work too well, but do whatever you need to do. Maybe your friend says, oh, I got this speed stuff. And you're like, I don't really get it. Talk to each other. See if they can teach you, right? See if students can help each other. That's fine as well. That's okay by us. No, that is not considered cheating. Now, if Billy tells Davey all the problems to one worksheet, no, that's not helping anybody, right? But if Billy walks Davey through all the problems and tells him how to do this and that and shows him, that's truly helping and truly teaching. Okay, so encourage one another. We'll get through this. We're learning together. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with your family, right? Stay safe. That's our top priority. Do as much as you can each day, and we'll keep learning together.